Hey everyone, you're very welcome back to Revenue Hacks. Happy to be back today. It is great to be back on Wednesdays. I did miss the rest of the crew. We've had some great fun backstage. It's been very, very funny. I'm very giddy as well today. So today we're talking all about distribution segmentation. We're talking all about the right way of doing it going into the future and some top tips that you can maybe learn from our industry experts and our thought leaders, which is super. So we're going to go around the room and have a quick conversation of who we are. And you know me, Khristina Quigley. I work in Hoist Group, but I'm also part of Raise Up and Revenue Hacks. Calvin.
Good morning. My name is Calvin Tilokee, CEO at Revpar Media. You may know me as Ref Problems on Instagram, and now I show businesses how to do their own social media and tell their stories.
Thibault.
Hi guys, my name is Thibault Catala. I'm the founder and managing director of Catala Consulting. We support hotels with their revenue management and we do consulting as well across Europe. Yeah, happy to be there.
Jonathon.
I'm Jonathon Liu. I lead the marketing and revenue strategy for GLH Hotels, and we have 18 hotels across the UK with a predominance in London.
And last but not least, Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sandra Gannon. I'm the founder of Revenue Puzzle, and we assist to turn opportunities into revenues through various ways and supports. I'm delighted to be back.
It's great to have everyone back on screen. It's always great to have Sandra and to have Jonathon with us because it always opens up for a very interesting conversation. We've had a year like no other. Hotels are back open. So let's get down to brass talks and let's get down to conversations. So let's talk about the future of distribution when it comes to hotels. We've seen it over time. B2Bs are going away. B2Cs are going away. Where are we going with this in the future?
From my side of things, I see lots of new players coming in, and they're trying to be all things. They're crossing over between B2C, B2B, becoming B2D. It's really quite challenging to keep up with who's supplying who, and that's where we have challenges with rate integrity, and that makes it even more important to actually know where your business is coming from and establish the right relationships to drive that business.
What Khristina is trying to say is that is amazing insight. And she's really excited. She's so excited, she's speechless.
And she did promise not to go on mute today.
She did. I think she's...
I said just before the show I wasn't going to go on mute. And now I am just like, as the Dubs would say, I'm scarlet. But, Jonathon, you touched on rate disparities. So, we're back to basically ground zero when it comes to tackling rates. So on a B2B and B2C, and how do we get to the bottom of that? Which is another question for another day, I think, for sure, because we've got an upcoming show on that, I think, next week. But, it's interesting to see that situation isn't going away as part of the distribution process.
I think rate parity is going to be even more important now than it's ever been before because people are conscious. Yes, they might not be as price sensitive, but again, it comes back down to what we discussed before, value adds and whatever. But it's also you're trying to find the right distribution channel which suits your bottom line. And I think it's, as you said, ground zero to start off and reevaluate who you're giving your inventory to. As much as, like, we call it precious inventory because it will become precious again. There will be an end to this. But I think if we now not be careful of who we're giving those rooms to, we're ending up where we were.
Well, you just touched on the fact that you're calling it precious inventory. And back in the green room, we did have a conversation about this. Due to lack of staff, is the inventory not already precious to the hotels in general, because we're finding that hotels can reach almost 100% occupancy right now. However, they're struggling to go further because of lack of staff within the industry.
It's a huge issue in London at the moment. I'm very privileged because we have so many hotels in London that we're actually only operating half of them, and we're moving the staff from closed hotels to our open hotels. And our open hotels are all but constrained in filling, which is really, really great. It's just trying to get that balance now of how much demand and understanding how much demand is coming in to get the right amount of hotels open at the right time.
And Jonathan, how is London doing right now?
London is resilient. London is doing well off the back of a strong UK domestic market. But with travel restrictions still in place, we're missing that valuable international market, which London has relied on for so long. A lot of that market drives very good rate. The Brits love a bargain, so they're all searching for the best deals. And where we would usually yield off good corporates or citywide congress, we just don't have that opportunity at the moment. But it is basically driven by leisure demand from the domestic market.
I can echo what Jonathon is saying. We are seeing like an increase of demand over weekends, like Friday and Saturdays, mostly from domestic, because that's the only thing that we can capture at the moment. Weekdays are a bit tougher in a way. I'm looking forward to recover in corporate, but it may not come back before after the summer or even Q4 this year, in my opinion. But London is going back, as we're discussing like offline. About the key workers, which were very strong in the past, and now we start to completely disappear. So now we're starting to replace part of this business into the leisure staycation, but it's not as much as what we had before with the key workers. So it's like it's looking better, but not as good as we wish so far.
Thibault, you just mentioned the corporate. So let's talk about this conversation, because last week I actually was partaking in the InnoFac, and we were actually talking about corporate leisure bookings, which there's a huge increase in North America in particular, where it's corporate people who've been locked up for a year with their families, and now they're going on business, but their families are coming with them. They're getting the corporate rate, midweek, weekends, whatever, and they're paying the supplement obviously for their families. It may be for $50, it may be actually a lot higher in some states. But how should people be tracking that? Because there is a question in tracking that at the moment. You know, do you say Monday to Friday is corporate, and then at the weekend it's leisure? Because it is a family booking essentially. Even if the business purpose, if one person is going for business, the rest of them are availing of your amenities.
I think it's hard to track, because I use a book, let's say like a JP Morgan rate, then it will be automatically tracked into the negotiated or corporate accounts. Even so, it's leisure purposes. So we need to find some different ways to adjust manually and so on. So it's very hard to track. But yeah, if we manage to get the leisure, corporate, and it's like the pleasure segment.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
I love that word. It came out of nowhere, but it totally covers what we were saying. But I think it is a sub-segment at the moment, and I think that's probably more what it is. It's a sub-segment to track behind the scenes. And again, you're going to rely very heavily on your operations team to tell you if they are arriving with family, or if they add the kids afterwards when they arrive. Because again, traditionally, the corporate booker has booked their single room and forgot temporarily to tell us that there was a second person, never mind now a family coming. So I think it's that updating of the system. It's that communication with operations of finding out, are they there for leisure or corporate business?
I think one easy way to track it will be to understand like the number of packs in each rooms. So let's say if you have JP Morgan's, in the past it was only like a single use, but if suddenly it starts to be like 4 or 5 in a room, you say, okay, there's something wrong. So that could be a way to track it down. No.
We run multiple segmentations across the business. So I have a segmentation that's designed purely for the yielding of the business and understanding what can be closed, opened, and restricted. And then I have a customer segmentation that sits over the top of that. And you can see different areas. So the customer segmentation is very much about looking at behaviors. It's about how many people are in the room. It's looking at the potential for revenue opportunities other than rooms. Whereas my room segmentation is very much about controlling inventory and yielding. So you can have multiple segmentations, but it's just trying to get the right segmentations to get to the right actions.
I feel like I'm the only one that gets hot and heavy about Excel sheets, and I'm literally just dreaming about what your Excel sheet looks right now, Jonathan, when it comes to that. it multiple tabs? Is it pivot tables? What is it? Because again, it's down to how we track this information and how we put it into a dashboard that people are able to read, and it's legible for us to be able to make them correct business decisions. See, I can't even talk. I'm so excited to be back today. But I think this whole conversation around pleasure is quite interesting because, there is that element where mom or dad are going to be working and A and B is going to be out with the kids all day, and then they'll hook up and they'll do whatever. And I think we will see that in Europe once it reopens properly, for sure.
But I think it's very interesting that you are tracking the customer segmentation as such, because I think it's so different this year with the domestic market. Why are people coming to your property might be completely different to why people are coming next year. And I think there's almost an interim period now where we're tracking slightly different to what possibly is going to happen next year again.
So let's talk about the domestic market tracking, because you know what? Once airlines reopen, they're not going to come. So, and the question that we're all going to get, let's be honest, the question we're all going to get is, where's that piece of the pie and how are we going to get it? So how can we look at replacing that business next year? Because people are starting to write their budgets right now. And how do we track it even for this year to show that it's coronavirus impacted domestic leisure, rather than just having a little note flanked in your Excel sheet or on your notebook or a post-it next to your desk or in your Bible eventually when you do decide to leave?
I guess looking at our customer segmentation, we're breaking it down by postcode in the UK. So we're comparing what we would have normally had in a 2018, 2019 by postcode. We're looking at the postcodes now, and you just see the variances. They're astronomical. So we bear that in mind, and then try and piece together what the next few months will be. And with travel restrictions, we know that that's still going to be increasing because people will stay in the UK. But then we have to realize which markets will open first and start to put the right strategies out there, because we can already see from our search demand, there is so much pent-up demand in all our key feeder markets. We just need those borders open to let them come in.
I have to put a disclaimer here. But what you're hearing from Jonathon is actually very advanced, because what I hear or what I see in other hotels is that a lot of hotels don't even have a market segmentation, or not even a channel mix. So if you are completely new to this concept of market segmentation, start at the beginning and look at just tracking your retail, discount groups, and wholesaler, and then you can go into even more details. But start from the basic first. Understand more what's going on, and then you can move to. I love this postcode idea. Don't get me wrong, but I think the next step when it comes to market segmentation.
Yeah,
we do have some old
pretty much
episodes
took it out of my
on
mouth.
YouTube. We do have some old episodes on YouTube that people can go back and have a look at. Jonathon, I really hope that's white wine or gin that you're drinking, or a vodka, by the way, out of your canteen. Really
absolutely.
But, and I love the way Thibault was thinking that's very advanced. I was literally thinking, I wouldn't want to be getting that email to me. It would probably take forever to download, especially if I was using my phone to download the Excel sheet.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you got it. I mean, it's always been so difficult to get customer information or accurate guest information on a booking. So yeah, we definitely got to talk afterwards. I don't know how you're doing that, but everybody needs to know. That's for sure.
For sure, when it comes to it, especially when it comes to, the segmentation of being able to even obtain that information from the likes of the OTAs. Because the OTAs right now don't even allow you to get that information most of the time. They always encourage you to get the guest not to give you their information so that you get your bookings quicker.
Yeah, it's all about the engagement of the customer journey, and people, if you incentivize them to give you information so you can make their stay better, they're very willing to give that to you. So rather than maybe a pre-arrival email, having an outbound call center where you can touch base with those key customers, thank them for booking through booking.com. How can we do more with your stay that's coming up? And through that, you can actually get a lot more information out of the customer to tailor the stay for them.
And staff training.
Staff training at check-in.
Yeah, at check-in, they also need to ask the right question on where do they come from and so on. A lot of time, I get pissed off when I see some report with no data or no country attached. It's just because the front office, they don't want to insert the France or whatever country is attached. But yeah, I think it starts with the front office asking the right question at check-in or even check-out to collect all those data. And if you see there is nothing attached, face the team. It's very important.
I love how you say that, because we're all of a sudden getting messages in here, and actually someone I know put in a message going, tracking by postcode. What? I'm only starting to see all the, we had a problem with LinkedIn this afternoon, so I'm only starting to see all the questions coming in. But I think what's really interesting as well, Julie, who's very big in technology, she actually did mention there the sharing of digital keys by guest to their companion would also give us a lot of information, which is so true. And I think moving forward, digital keys will be the way that people go. And I think the whole digital empire needs to be updated by a lot of hotels to be able to actually further that development, because there's a lot of information that you can get from upgrading your systems and upgrading your connection partners to be able to actually help you further your segmentation, your marketing. You know, a lot of them have tailor-made RMS systems now that can actually factor in all these different segments if you build them correctly and rate codes correctly. Which brings us to the next point. You know, now more than ever, we're starting to see an increase in new connections with OTAs to the systems. Sandra, you just touched on, you know, important or precious inventory going forward. And we're already seeing that in a lot of parts across the world at the moment. How would you recommend what would you recommend to hotels to do in order to actually protect this environment or protect this inventory? You know, for me, it's always been about ceilings, rate levels, moving inventory, moving rates, moving people from one room to another. So what would you guys recommend to people to do going forward to be able to protect that inventory?
Well, I think certainly it would be foolish to say that we won't need the OTAs. They're going to be there. We've seen Bookings.com spending massive amounts on advertising right now because they didn't have to do it for the last year. So it would be foolish not to say or to say that we don't need them. But I think it's the balance of working with certainly your direct providers or any other business mix you might be targeting. And it's really crucial that marketing understands what to do, with your data, but also where you want to go. And I think previously there probably was a disconnect of going, this is our strategy and this is how we want to target certain areas, but we possibly forgot to tell marketing about it, that we really want the direct strategy to work, or we really want to target the domestic market. And I think that it needs to be an absolute 360 conversation now with your booking engine suppliers, your website supplier, and so on, of how far can we get? How many people can we attract and convert without saying, okay, well, I'm only giving 50 rooms to the OTAs and 50 rooms to my own website. And then I still have my 50 rooms for my own website, but my OTAs are sold out. And I'm going to sit there going, no, I'm not going to give you 51 rooms because I said I will stick at 50. So I think it's that healthy balance of, you need to look at your data, you're analyzing the data. The booking windows have shortened so much. Certainly for the domestic market, like we've seen something now for the west coast of Ireland, the booking lead time literally has changed to 2 or 3 days, depending on the weather forecast. So it's something we used to look at the bigger pictures. We used to look at events. We used to look at seasonality. We used to look at what possibly could impact the international travel. But I think we now need to look at going, okay, what's impacting the domestic travel? Without being very much put into your brackets of going, you get 10 rooms, you get 10 rooms, and you get 10 rooms.
I wasn't sure that the weather actually changed in the UK. I thought it was just cloudy and rainy.
Oh, in Ireland it changes all the time.
In Ireland you get 4 seasons in a day.
I'm not amazing, right? This morning I woke up and it was pouring rain. It turned into lovely and sunny. I went to go out. It started pouring again. And now it's actually, I don't even know what it's doing right now. It could snow for all I know. But to Sandra's point, it is so true. I worked with a hotel chain last year. And when I was working in Waterford for them, I actually was getting bookings on cancellations on the day because of the rain. And people would actually call you saying, sorry, I can't do the activities I want to do today, so I'm going to cancel my booking. And I can see Jonathon shaking his head in agreement as well with that. Jonathon, what would you recommend to people to do when it comes to protecting the inventory? What are you guys doing in GLH? Because you were very much ahead of the curve when it comes to how you guys deal with your inventory. You've always been that way, especially because London is always so busy for you guys. Yeah,
we've taken a different approach to our direct booking strategy, and we've looked at a booking strategy by point of sale. So we've identified UK as a market that we can really compete in direct bookings. That's where we should be focused. But if I look at some of my markets like South Korea, Japan, or Russia, I'm not going to have the money to invest into language capabilities and things like that. So I need to find the right partner that I can, whether it's a B2B or B2C that can actually get that business for me. So breaking down your direct booking strategies into markets can really help you hone where you're going to spend that money and make better investments.
I love the way you mention investments. It's always about the investments. But I think what's really interesting is we did have a comment there from Julie, and I really like this because she says perhaps we can suggest to the OTAs that they get less commission if they don't give us demographic information. I think that's a great idea, but unfortunately, we all know the big players are never going to do that for us. And I think what's interesting is that, these big players give us some sort of demographic information. But again, a lot of the revenues that come with it are always, they're gross. They include additional spend like F&B, whatever add-ons have been done. A lot of the time, I actually only use that information coming from there just to have a look at basically how I'm pacing. Sometimes I don't even believe the pace. And I'm going to be honest about that because, again, it's the algorithm. It's almost like an algorithm anywhere, Google, LinkedIn, everywhere. You can take one day off or one day where you won't have inventory and you automatically fall to the bottom. We've all been there. We've done that. And I think that's the one thing. I think the biggest problem that we have facing as well is that there needs to be an industry shift when it comes to commissions and payments for sure. And I do think it needs to be a case that we as an industry start shouting for lower commissions. I understand this is how the likes of Booking.com, Expedia, and everyone makes their money and they're able to become billion-dollar companies. But at the end of the day, it really is the cost of acquisition on your room. And that cost can be anything from 10% or even lower to the whole way to 20% in some cases, depending on where you are, what chain you're working with, and what properties or type of property you have. And that's a lot when you're looking at it when the prices are slowly growing right now. But even, if we look back this time last year, the prices were astronomically low.
I'm not a big fan of OTA
who wants to do this?
Yeah,
who wants to lead this one?
I can. I'm not a big fan of OTA bookings, but I may say that today in some hotels we are killing it, and because of the OTA, we are driving some revenue. If you really want to look at the bad players, look at the wholesaler. The wholesaler net Revpar is even lower than the OTA, and sometimes people are focusing on OTA but not on the wholesaler. So look at those kind of things. And then, as we are currently, as we discussed in many webinars before, we are currently in the black swan events that we have no idea what it will look like in the future. I will try to leverage as many channels as possible to understand, collect data, understand, learn from the new trend and new behavior before closing or restricting anything. So looking at, as you mentioned, Jonathon, travel agents, TA, local DMC, and so on, looking at leveraging as well the OTA before restricting anything, because some channels may actually save your next few months. That's my recommendation.
I love Adele's comment there. So Adele is joining our show in a few weeks' time. I'm really excited to have Adele on the show. But Adele's just commented there, no commission on taxes. That is so true, 100%. I am fed up to the teeth. And also, in the last year, they've become really sneaky, charging commission on no-shows, even if we didn't get paid, or late cancellations and we didn't get paid. It just seems to be an absolute fight going forward with the OTAs for sure. Thibault, you touched on wholesales. Can't believe we're going to go there. I try not to go there. But are we starting to see the end of these guys? Are we starting to see them come to end of life?
I'm getting excited now. Wholesaler, in my opinion, bed banks and wholesaler were actually dying. Like, in my opinion, wholesaler were going to disappear completely. But in my opinion, and that's only me, I think the pandemic saves them because I think they will make a comeback. I think the leisure market, which is also linked to wholesaler, will do a comeback in the next few months. So I will try to leverage as well wholesaler to see if they can perform before closing them down and so on. Yeah, of course, with a dynamic rate and everything. But I believe we should look at wholesaler to diversify our channels and see if we can bring some business. So in my opinion, they were dying, but the pandemic saved them.
Jonathon, because I'm sure you have a relationship like me.
They have to adapt, just as we have to adapt to our customers' changing behaviors. The wholesalers need to change as well. And I can see some of them making some strides and becoming more B2C than B2B, and that will do them well. But there are some out there who are very stuck in their ways and continue to do business as they did 10, 15 years ago. That's limiting for them in terms of their growth. So you need to be able to understand exactly what that cost is for the distribution, because in some hotels, if you're a franchise partner or a managed hotel, by the time you add in all your loyalty fees and things like that, the actual net contribution to profitability can be just as low as a wholesaler. So you need to understand all the elements that go into your revenue and understand that acquisition cost.
So Abe just commented there saying, I'm sure you guys can all see this comment right now in the chat box, that the new wholesaler, it's on the bottom of the screen there as well. I'm not going to mention the name, but the new wholesaler is blah, and they're a pain. These guys have been a pain in every distribution specialist backside since about 4 or 5 years ago, when Booking.com wouldn't sell them the rooms and they just started swiping all the information, even though they're the same partner. Does anyone in the room have really good top tips, even just 1 or 2 tips to help with the pain of dealing with Agoda? Because again, their customer support isn't localized. It's a job to get to talk to someone. What do you guys recommend? I love the way Jonathon is just laughing there going, I have no recommendations. I pull my hair out every day.
He even moved back in the seat. You saw that? He wanted no part of that question.
There are plenty of other partners out there to work with.
So, and saying that, okay, so how does that work though? Because again, they're buying rooms off everybody, so it's still going to fall into your system. So even if there's plenty of rooms or people to work with, you know, you still have to honor that booking from the guest because they have bought it from their sister company or they've bought it from somebody else. How are you managing that situation?
So we have some really good partnerships with other B2B distributors, and we actively ask them to shut off certain channels if we see them undercutting us, and it's in their best interest as well. So our partners actually shut off those sorts of channels for us.
That's actually really interesting because I used to shut them out completely, and for some reason they'd always become reactivated, and I'd be literally pulling my hair out. I think Sandra may have got 1 or 2 voice clips about that last year when I was sitting in Waterford. Sandra, what would you recommend?
I think as Jonathon said, if you can get them closed out, absolutely do. If you're trying to find out who is actually feeding them, which again is a big challenge of finding out, make a test booking. And even if it goes as far as you might be losing a little bit of your prepaid deposit or whatever, just see if you can stick it on the company credit card. But it's so important to find out who is actually the supplier. And then there's a couple of them, we all know them, who they are. They are selling on, and you will keep finding them even if they said they closed out. But I think it's really drilling down of who's feeding Agoda, because unless you close them out or you work with them, they will keep at it.
I think the test booking is the best strategy. I have a 3 strikes policy in a way that if I find one, I give them a warning, second warning, third one I cut them off. But Agoda is kind of the, what do you call this? Like something when you cut and then it brings a 2 new one, or when you cut off 2, it brings 4.
Okay, so
like the Terminator.
It's a cockroach. You keep trying to get the cockroach, and it just comes back bigger and better every time.
I'm getting so many
though.
memes from this show. It's not even. You guys give me so many ideas.
We're going to have to start charging you for this, man, as well. You know that. That's
You
just
may
it.
have
It's not even you getting out here. It's actually us charging you for it. But it's
now.
really,
Who do you
really
sound
true.
like? Now you sound like you want to get commission on everything.
I can't pay for my
Khristina's
lifestyle. I can't pay for my gin and running lifestyle just doing this on a daily basis, you know. A girl's got to get paid. I think what's really interesting is Dylan Beaumont has just said Marriott is regularly approached by wholesalers to open up more bundled packages. We found that they were selling the rooms unpackaged, unbundled, and a cut rate. We opted out of that agreement very promptly, and that is so true. We've seen that in the past. I've seen it with IHG. If Luke is on the call, hey Luca, it's really nice if you're here. If you're not, you'll catch up when I tag you in this message. But IHG had a very, very similar problem. I think what's interesting is now more than ever, B2B and wholesalers are starting to go direct to the chains and tie in the properties. So if they get a hard no from you as a hotel, they're going straight to the account manager in the brand, because the brand needs you. The brand needs them right now to help increase their numbers and their royalties. So, it's just very frustrating. Before I left my last job, we had serious issues with the wholesaler, and the wholesaler just kept going to the brand every time. And I was like, I'm a franchisee, man. I don't have to play by your rules. I don't have to do it. I can turn you off at any stage if I need to. And that's where it's really important that people start to regulate their segmentation and the distribution based on rate levels or rate codes that you can cut them off when they sell 3 rooms, 5 rooms, even just 1 room, depending on the size of the property. Or if you're trying to do that billboard effect, does that billboard effect even still exist anymore? Maybe Kat can chime in if the cheap rate still appears every now and then, if the billboard effect still is there on the GDS site. I think what's really interesting, Julie's just after saying, is that it's a dirty part of the industry. I love that statement. That is just brilliant. And Amoma. Oh my God. I actually had seen that comment in the bottom. I was like, Amoma, who is that? And I was like, oh yeah, do you remember them?
Yeah, and now they've got Snap Travel and the likes that are just replacing them, which isn't
I was going to say, I hope we're not going in alphabetical order because it's going to be a long fight.
We should do a call all about them. Oh, wow, that'd be great. There's so many stories. And actually, I'm really looking forward to the rate disparity call because that's going to be actually really cool. There's some really good top tips that you can do to actually be able to find out who that middleman is who's selling a rate on and be able to cancel it. But let's go back to the distribution. So, Jonathon, in the last few weeks, especially because obviously the hotels have reopened in London, have you changed your segmentation? Have you changed your distribution? Have you changed what you guys are working on in the background? What have you done to your Excel sheets?
Well, we moved all Excel spreadsheets to just a couple of partners and got some specialist partners in with a new customer data platform that we can actually see everything. And it takes everything from Opera, it takes everything from our Wi-Fi logins, it takes everything from our Salesforce sales contracts. So I can actually see the customers, whether they're business, leisure, all the different elements of their behaviors, which then gives me the ability to really focus in which channels and distribution channels that I want to open. So we've made some investments in the UK market, really focusing on the north of England, because we've seen that as a huge opportunity for us and seeing them come to London. And then we've looked at our Google Analytics to see all the search trends. And we're seeing search demand for certain places like the US coming to London higher than what it was in 2019. They're not booking yet, but if you can see that search demand already, we're now putting things in place that we can actually just turn on as soon as we get the go-ahead from the government. So it's really important to plan ahead, understand that these things will happen. So get all your ducks in a row now so you can just switch things on and not have to be reactive when something does happen.
I love that because I'm actually going to take that as a clip and I'm going to play that weekly on the Revenue Hacks Instagram page. So if you don't follow it, follow us because that'll be your weekly reminder to get your ducks in a row, because there's so many hotels that just leave it to the last minute. And then it's a conversation of, well, what can we do right now to attract business right there? Sandra, what are you doing differently at the moment? Because you're working on a few different projects.
I think I totally agree with Jonathon. It's the planning, because I think what we saw certainly in the Irish market was the day the announcement came out when hotels were able to reopen, and then the date came out. So everybody then planned of going, oh, great staycation. Then the next week, the date came out of when you can leave the country again for non-essential travel. So the bookings collapsed again. So I think it's really planning ahead and having a plan A and a plan B of going, okay, what's the UK restrictions doing now, certainly for Ireland. So there needs to be a plan. It can't just happen every time the date comes out that you go, oh, well, what am I going to do now? Because that's not going to work. The same, the date was announced where the hotels could reopen. The hotel teams were overwhelmed, or reservation teams were overwhelmed, but all of a sudden the telephone hopping off, and it was a weekend, and you're going, but we kind of expected that. So why did you not plan ahead to that and have your staffing in place and so on? So I think it's really the ducks in a row, Jonathon, absolutely. They have to be there, and different scenarios need to be planned out.
Thibault, what are you doing differently in your regions?
I mean, in terms of market segmentation and channel mix, we were still sticking to the usually standard, so we didn't change much. However, we have started to incorporate some forward-looking data into the mix to understand, to proactively understand what's going on in the future. So you have some good third-party providers, but you have also some free ones, such as Google Destination, which can tell you some surge of demand and searches by destination. So understanding not only what happened in the past in terms of segmentation, in terms of channel mix, but as well what's going to happen in the next few months, few weeks. And I think that's very important to go back to what Jonathon and Sandra was mentioning, to proactively prepare for what's going to happen, not to have any surprise. I know we have a lot of surprise, and I'm quite sure it will have 1,000 of surprise until the pandemic is fully done. However, the more proactive we are, understanding what's happening in the future, the better prepared we'll be.
A quick yes or no. Do you guys believe 100% that you should be able to price different channels by different rate? So do you think Expedia should be cheaper than, you know what I mean, should be Booking.com, or do you think it should only be your brand website cheaper than the OTAs?
Yes, I should have control.
Thank you. I love the way Thibault's like, no, I actually am a firm believer in this. And every time I see different countries change their parity laws to say that they're able to do this, I literally throw a party, genuinely. I think Germany was the latest one, wasn't it? Or France. Someone done it recently and I was like, yes. And Kat, thank you, Kat. Delighted. Someone else agrees with that one.
On your site, yes. On your direct channels, yes. To be like, say it's cheaper, but everywhere else, I think you need to have rate parity. I think
no, but why can't you punish the high commissions? Why can't you actually punish the high commissions for having a higher cost of sale?
They're going to punish you as well. I think you need to play the rules of the game, and then they're going to leverage and see the production on these channels. But only on the direct channels, I think I will reward customers who are booking direct for this, but not on other channels. I want to play the game fairly, and I want them to give them an opportunity to leverage. Yeah.
So do I, but then they need to bring down the commission. I think this is actually a great conversation for another show. I think I'm going to get my boxing gloves on and everything, Thibault. I'm going to come to London for this show for sure. I actually did ask that question. First of all, again, we called out Kat just to see if the billboard effect does exist. She did say it still does exist. She thinks anyways. Bookers will often use the OTA as a hotel search engine and then check the hotel's own website. That's why the user experience on hotel's own site is vitally important. Price integrity, but also parity offering, or a better offering in terms of benefits and amenities on the hotel's own website. I think that is so true, but there's a small but or a big but depending on where you are. I think your website needs to be user-friendly, and I think it needs to have up-to-date pricing 100%. So it needs to have attractive packages if you're doing that, rather than just something that we've put up there to take a web page.
Yeah. You have to also remember, we keep talking about how the traveler is getting younger and younger, right? So, this generation grew up with Expedia, Booking.com all in their face. So that's where they're going to start. They're going to look on these OTAs to find your hotel first. So I think it's absolutely crucial to be on there.
I love the way actually Kat said it's not so much punishing the high commission, but rewarding the direct booker. And she also said yes to you about fair pricing.
Thank you,
Kat, I will call you after this. You and I are no longer friends anymore. But I do think you should be able to set your own rate on everywhere and sell independently. We were able to do that years ago. Obviously, with the distribution world, that completely changed. But I do think it's kind of changing in certain countries that, I think we can learn from other regions on how to do it for sure. I'm not saying we have multiple prices across every channel, because that's just going to create an unmitigated spreadsheet war when you're trying to look at where everything is and you're tracking and dilution of rate. But I do think we should be able to have some sort of attractive package or attractive rates to encourage people. Adele did touch on something interesting, which is, these websites that scrape your either property site or scrape a Booking.com site. We've seen this in the past with legacy sites. And then when you call to make the booking, it almost sounds like you're through to the hotel, but it's actually a fraudulent booking. I think that really needs to be examined a lot from a property point of view. And I think they should be looking out for everything. I kind of feel, after speaking to a lot of hoteliers over the last year, some people actually don't even bother looking online and putting their property into Google and seeing what's coming up. Or is it just me and I'm talking to the wrong people? Or are you guys seeing the same type of situation?
No, I think that's spot on.
You can stay out of this conversation because we know you probably have you're probably your best search engine guru ever in the UK for that. So go on, Calvin.
I mean, he's getting postcodes and everything. He's got the mailman, getting information for him. He's on another level. But no, I think you're 100% spot on. I think a lot of people have been missing the trick of just simple things like that. Go through the guest process and Google your own hotel. What comes up? It's become a big thing with meta search over the past few years, where we're kind of forced to go on Google and see what's being pulled from where. And you'd be shocked when you look at that meta search. You've got a rate that's $100 less than what you're offering. And now you've got to dig and see where that's coming from and who's pulling that. And then when you go through the book, it may not be there, but guests are getting caught in that loop. So I think you're right.
But I think it's coming back down to the point of looking ahead and planning ahead, and not be firefighting the here and now. It's the how do I get ready for the future.
So what do we think the future of distribution is going to look like? I'm not talking about next year. I'm talking about 4 years' time, 5 years' time. Everyone seems to go a 5-year plan. So, I love the way Thibault's like, wow, what are we doing this now? But, he throws his eyes up to the sky. What do we think the future of distribution is looking like, for sure?
Everything moves in cycles.
Yeah, I think voice can do a comeback. The no-click bookings could make a big appearance in the next few years, where you just like Alexa book me a room at in London city centre. I think that could be a big one. But in terms of distribution channels, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't see much changes on what we currently have.
Jonathon?
I think things will move in cycles. So we're going to have big players swallowing up little players, and then we'll see new offshoots in new technologies coming out. They'll last a few years, and then the big players will gobble them up again, and we just keep moving in this cycle. So there's always going to be something new. There's always going to be someone trying to break through and get into the market, because there is a lot of money to be made in distribution if you do it well. Some of it is done by partners who work on your own direct websites, and they could be actually building the websites, they could be sorting the digital media, all those sorts of things. So there's money there, but there's also others that are then trying to be the next booking.com and trying to be bought, because it's easy to make some good capital when you invest in a technology.
Sandra, I just want to say before you jump in, good morning, Jason. Good morning to Texas. Hope you're well. Jason from SHR has actually joined the call. So Sandra, go on.
I think you will see a lot more of the mergers, as Jonathon said, but also I think you will start seeing Amazon likes trying to get into the market. It's that buying the base room and then adding on what you want, your predictive buying. And again, that will attract the current technical savvy generation a lot more. They and I mean, you brought up Alexa, which is absolutely right. Like, if my son can shout at Alexa to turn up the volume and turn the volume down, he can in a couple of years book his room through it, no problem. I think that's what you will see, that it's more and more tailored to the technical savvy generation.
But wasn't that what was happening with Google anyways? Google for years has been working on this. That's the whole idea behind their hotel finder. That was the hotel booking engine that they were trying to do. They were telling us all for years. I remember sitting when I was in Dalata almost 6 years ago, when Google Homes were kind of starting to come out, and the plan was that it was going to change and revolutionize. But that's only going to make Calvin's job difficult and everybody else's job difficult. But it is when it deals with people who deal with search and voice search. Every person's search is completely different. Oh my goodness, if you heard me talk to Google half the time, you'd be like, what the hell is she talking about? Is she even speaking English? So, how are you going to be able to tap into that market for sure when it comes to voice search and, your SEO and PPC in the future?
You don't have it's not even on the top 10 to appear on the first page. You have to be number 1 because you have only one result on Alexa and Siri, which is very complicated. But yeah, I get you what you are saying, Khristina. Can you imagine with me, with my accent, with Alexa? I have no clue of what she's saying, and she has no clue of what I'm saying. So it's very complicated. But yeah, I think it's moving forward into this Alexa market.
Calvin, what's your thoughts on that for the future, especially for digital marketing side of things?
I mean, I think going back to the segmentation conversation, I think it's always going to be tough. It's really difficult unless you can capture this nitty-gritty information upon arrival at some point during the process. It's always going to be hard to track. I mean, how many of us have gone to conferences where you tack on an extra couple of days because you're in a cool city and you want to hang out, and you get that group rate, for the next couple of days, but half of that's business, half of that is leisure. I think it's always been like that. I think there's certainly an increase now in that guest and that traveler. I think some people are making trips for that reason, as opposed to it being an afterthought, in the past. But that's always going to be tough. And I think, again, it just all comes down to how much information you can capture. That's always going to be the name of the game.
Yep, data integrity is so important if you can get that data capture. I mean, even on some of our forms, like everyone is used to seeing little asterisks and knowing that you have to fill in that form.
Mm-hmm.
So put an asterisk at the end of the address line when you're getting people to check in online. They'll put the data in there. Might not be mandatory, but put the asterisk there and people will fill it in.
You see, I love the way you say online, because that's where I was just about to say, do you think check-in is just going to be a complete online situation going forward in the future? Because I personally think it will be. I love the thoughts of it going to be completely online, because I think that's one way you'll always get people's information 100%, because we've been using our phones and our PCs to be able to buy things. So everything is automatically saved in my Google. So when I actually fill in Anthem, it just comes up, what address do you want to choose? Boom, done.
And there's the postcode, and that's how you get it.
Well,
that's the secret. Write it down.
I'm going to correct you, right? Here in Ireland, they're called air codes, not
Exactly.
Okay, no.
We know air code.
Okay. I've been listening to this the whole episode. They're called zip codes, okay? Zip.
Whatever, you're outnumbered here on this side of the pond right now. We'll just have the traditional England-Ireland fight between Jonathon. Thibault can chime in on Jonathan's side, and I'll just have Sandra. It'll be great fun. But I think that's one way of going forward, is if people start adopting this automatic check-in, or even just completing the check-in forms online. First of all, your front desk isn't actually going to be trying to read chicken scratch or Mystic Meg the numbers or the digits or the address. Oh my God, the stories I could tell you from what addresses I was putting in for years into PMSs when it came to people back years ago. I think that's the most difficult thing. And Judy has agreed, it's got to be, there's no real benefit in checking in if you have payment details that can be delivered obviously by a key. And it lets the guests get on with their stay. It frees up staff, and that means your staff aren't trying to cook keys, answer phones, check in people. They can be that cool lifestyle, boutique style people who wander around the hotel asking if everything's okay. How's your stay? And they're more proper guest service agents rather than, the actual dealing with reception and just that stressed out person at the desk, because I'm sorry, that time is gone. And I think that then people should definitely have been gone away with because of the pandemic. I think that's kind of done away with that time for sure. I love the way Cat McLeod has said, air code sounds very much like error code. Well, and you were supposed to be Irish as well. This is like, you told me you love Ireland, Cat, like, seriously. But, we could have conversations about this all day. But Julie, are you checking in? I love the way everyone's starting to comment. I just feel like we could run the show for another hour, but unfortunately we can't. Are you checking in? I love that. Yeah. I used to always say to people when I was doing my training, when I worked for Best Western Hotels and Resorts, never ask the guests if they're checking in. Why else would the guest be standing in front of you with a load of luggage? One day a hotel actually did ask me this, and they said, are you checking in? I was like, no, I just travel thousands of miles and have 2 big suitcases for no reason. I'm actually just here to have a look at your lobby and walk out. What do you think I'm here for? It's just, that's gone. That's archaic. Why is someone standing at your front desk then?
Be your own people. Your own people do it to you.
I know. And that is the problem, Okay, on that note, we have to end the show, which I think is just as well, because we could talk about this all day. I want to thank Jonathon and Sandra very much for joining. Calvin, thank you so much for being on the show as usual. And Thibault, it's always great to have you.
Of course.
We are back next week. I will see everybody next week. I can't wait for another week of revenue hacks. Thanks a million. Bye.
Thank you, guys.